Primary time in high-stakes New Hampshire. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm Jenna Bratter.
And I'm John Jessup. Democrats in the Granite State getting their turn to cast ballots for who they want to see as their presidential nominee.
Candidates are campaigning hard all over the state in their final attempt to win over voters. Polls opened at midnight in several counties, leaving Amy Klobuchar hopeful as she took home the most votes in 3 townships.
The midnight polls are any indication we're going to have a pretty good night tonight.
And the most recent national poll, the Boston Globe WBZ Suffolk University poll, shows Senator Bernie Sanders in the lead with 27%, Pete Buttigieg in second with 19%, and Klobuchar in third at 14%, followed by Joe Biden and Senator Elizabeth Warren at 12%. Polls are just a snapshot, though, and New Hampshire has long been known to pull a surprise.
And President Trump, eager to cast his own shadow on the race, also hit the stump in New Hampshire, taking direct aim at Democrats last night at a campaign rally in Manchester. Ahead of the rally, the president said he'd hoped to rattle Democrats and get under their skin. He took shots at the impeachment attempt, mocked Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All plan, and pointed out last week's counting mayhem in the Iowa caucuses. The president lost New Hampshire in the general election 4 years ago, but his team now believes it can flip the state to red this November.
The first step to victory in November is tomorrow. Go send a message that Republicans, and you can vote for the weakest candidate if you want, don't worry about it. I don't really think we actually have a candidate against us. That Republicans are energized, that we're united, and that 9 months from now, we are going to take back the House of Representatives, we are going to hold the Senate, and we are going to keep the White House.
Vice President Mike Pence, alongside Trump's daughter Ivanka, and Senators Lindsey Graham and Rand Paul are among those still in New Hampshire campaigning on the president's behalf.
And joining us now for more, Rick Klein, ABC News political director, who is in New Hampshire. Rick, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. You know, it's down to the wire. What are you anticipating tonight?
Well, it's a huge night to test some campaign strategies. Bernie Sanders has the inside track here. He won by 20 points 4 years ago. He is from a neighboring state. Traditionally, that's been a good sign for a candidate. Pete Buttigieg came in with the hot hand. He got a boost out of Iowa, even with those delayed results. The split-screen winner out of Iowa. So a lot of people have focused on him. And don't sleep on Amy Klobuchar. She had a strong debate on ABC on Friday night, and a lot of people have been talking about her candidacy. That may have contributed to the Joe Biden collapse. You know, the news in that he's going to be leaving New Hampshire tonight as the polls close to head to South Carolina, a signal that he is waving the white flag here in New Hampshire.
It is interesting to see Klobuchar's 11th hour surge and Biden talk about retreating to South Carolina tonight. But in the last several days, we've been seeing the stepped up attacks from Sanders and Buttigieg. Sanders telling NBC News Buttigieg telling NBC News that Sanders would have difficulty against Trump in the general election because president has branded him as an out-of-touch socialist who'd ruin the economy. Is there really any opening for Democrats, given the economy is doing so well and voters typically tend to reward presidents who preside over a strong economy?
Oh, look, the race is far from over. We don't know where the economy is going to be. We also know who the nominee is going to be. The president has made clear right here in Manchester last night and beyond that he's going to run on that economy. And we heard it with the State of the Union. He's got a case to make that's a pretty strong one. But look, Democrats are going to have to grapple with that. And, I've talked to a lot of Democrats who've been almost despondent in recent days and saying we can't win this thing. This is a divided country. It's going to be a close election, certainly. That is the one thing I'm certain of, is that it's going to be a very close election. And it's going to look different for the Democrats once they have a nominee. They will have a nominee, even if this is a very messy period of time.
Rick, what do you make of Joe Biden not sticking around there in New Hampshire?
Stunning decision. I mean, he had a natural base of support. He's spent a lot of time in New Hampshire over the years. To me, it signals the reality that we've sensed on the ground here for the last couple of days. He's been bleeding support. Even at the debate Friday night, he says he was likely to get another setback. And I think this is a nod to that. It's also a signal of how strongly he is putting his eggs in the South Carolina basket. He needs to win there. He needs to break through there. He needs to show that African-American voters in the South can support his candidacy. You can't win in the Democratic primary without that constituency. That is the last thing he has left. What looked like a front-running campaign just a week ago is now going to put all of its hopes and dreams on one state.
All right, ABC's Rick Klein in Manchester, New Hampshire, covering the New Hampshire primary. Thanks for being with us tonight, Rick.
Thank you both. Thanks.
Well, back here in Washington, Democrats are pushing back on President Trump's budget plan that calls for heavy cuts.
The $4.8 trillion spending proposal targets things like food stamps, farm subsidies, and Medicaid. CBN White House correspondent Ben Kennedy joins us with the details. Ben?
Well, Jenna, John, the budget ensures that federal funds do not support abortions and calls for defunding Planned Parenthood. But Democrats say the budget cuts health care to the bone and puts American lives at risk. Now, the 2021 budget proposal imposes an immediate 5% cut to non-defense agency budgets passed by Congress. $700 billion in cuts to Medicaid over a decade. It does not affect individual benefits, and seniors are exempt from cuts to Medicare and Social Security while targeting benefit safety net programs. The plan calls for $4.4 trillion in cuts in government spending over 10 years. It slashes funding for overseas military operations to save $567 billion over 10 years, but it does add $1.5 trillion over the same time frame to make Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent law.
The president's budget makes clear that his pledge at the State of the Union that he'd protect Americans with pre-existing conditions is nothing less than a bald-faced lie. And we're used to that with this president.
Now, the government is currently running a deficit of over $1 trillion a year. The White House here behind me their plan does aim to decrease the government deficit starting in 2022 with a promise of a balanced budget within 15 years. John, Jenna?
Ben Kennedy at the White House, thank you. To the battle over abortion. Republican lawmakers are pushing legislation that would protect babies who survive abortion attempts. Today, the Senate Judiciary Committee debated the Born Alive Abortion Survivors Protection Act. It would require doctors to provide medical care to these infants. Abortion supporters call the bill harmful to women's rights. Those against abortion, though, say all babies should receive the same care.
Access to reproductive health care, including abortion, is a key part of every individual's liberty, equality, and economic security. And the U.S. Supreme Court recognized as much 45 years ago, and that remains true today.
Whether or not we have the ability to heal, we are always obligated to care. This means that all human babies who are born alive are our patients, and medical personnel should be ready to directly provide the medical standard of care or be prepared to stabilize the baby until a team with more advanced training arrives.
Well, here now for our Faith Nation political panel, CBN News senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon. Jennifer, the fact that Senate Republicans are holding this hearing in a general election year seems to signal something. How much do you anticipate abortion playing an issue in the 2020 campaign?
Well, I think for anyone who cares about abortion, this is going to be a huge issue because there is going to be a black and white contrast. No matter who the Democratic nominee is, I haven't heard any of them advocating for restrictions on abortion. You look at the 2016 Democratic platform, they actually say that they're against any restrictions on funding for Planned Parenthood and any state or federal law that restricts abortion. So we're talking about basically New York-style abortion on demand that is in the Democratic Party's platform, that beside President Trump, who is the most pro-life president in history.
Yeah, it's a stark contrast. Let's talk about New Hampshire, Jennifer. What did you make of the president's rally last night? He seems to have a lot of enthusiasm there.
11,000 people on a very cold night, I'm sure, in New Hampshire. Look, Republicans are fired up. What is it, 96% of Republicans who approve of the job he's doing? They're enthusiastic, and I think that no matter who comes out the winner in New Hampshire tonight, the big thing we have to be looking at is voter turnout, because enthusiasm is what is going to win this election for either side. And if you look at Iowa, so far we haven't seen Democrats being energized. Again, going back to what we've been talking about, strong economy, a Gallup poll late last week that said 90% of Americans are happy with the way their lives are. So are those voters going to be motivated? We have to wait and see.
Speaking of Iowa, Joe Biden's poor performance in Iowa, his polling in New Hampshire signaling that he's not going to do well. He's already saying that he's going to retreat to South Carolina even before the results come in tonight. Is this the beginning of the end for Joe Biden?
Not yet. I mean, look, it doesn't look well. He looks defeated, right? I mean, he kind of looks like a dog that's tucking his tail and going home. But he still has strong support in South Carolina. And remember, this is all about electability. He was the front runner to begin with because he had name recognition, and everybody thought that Fightin' Joe was the best candidate to go up against President Trump. So he has to convince the black constituency in South Carolina, especially, that he is still their guy. He's still the guy who could beat Trump, because Democrats just want Trump out of there. As Bernie gets momentum, as Pete Buttigieg gets momentum, you know, it's going to be harder and harder for Biden to make that case. So this is a critical moment for him.
On the Equal Rights Act, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she has weighed in. Jennifer, she says she would like to see the effort start over. How likely do you think that is?
Look, it's hard to amend the Constitution for a reason. It's very hard. And I think at this moment, it would be very hard as written for this to get through the U.S. Senate. And beyond that, to get 3/4 of the states to ratify this, if you look at the 2016 electoral map and see that sea of red, it would be very hard to get 3/4 of those states. However, this could be an opportunity for the amendment to be rewritten to address some concerns that conservatives have, that women have about abortion, about the fact that, you know, while women want equal rights, and that's very important, women and men are different. And to, you know, make those distinctions in an amendment, I think it's an opportunity to do that. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon, but this fight is far from over.
All right, senior Washington correspondent Jennifer Wishon. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Well, tonight we're getting more key information on the imminent threat that led to the killing of Qasem Soleimani, the Iranian military leader killed days into the new year. National security correspondent Eric Phillips is getting new details and joins us now with more on what was potentially in the works. Eric?
Well, John, we sat down with Michael Pregent, a well-connected Middle East intelligence expert who's also fought in that region. He provided insight on so-called chatter regarding the situation and how it harkened back to the 1979 hostage situation.
He was worse than Osama bin Laden. He was worse than Baghdadi. He was worse than Zarqawi.
That's why last month, at my direction, the U.S. military executed a flawless precision strike that killed Soleimani and terminated his evil reign of terror forever.
It was the best move we could have made.
Michael Pregent of the Hudson Institute says the clear picture provided by sources of the threat Soleimani posed to the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad made his demise a must.
The chatter was that they were going to do a 1979 hostage siege. They were going to take over the embassy, take all the Americans in the embassy hostage, and then broker release for sanctions relief.
While Soleimani was the main target, Pregent says the other terror leader killed in the strike would have also played a key role in the siege.
The chatter was they were going to put Abu Mahdi al-Mohandes in as prime minister, so do a coup, and then seize the embassy.
Pregent says when militia forces penetrated the U.S. Embassy on December 31st, it was essentially a dress rehearsal for what was to come.
They walked into the embassy without weapons, trashed it, saw how close they could get to it, saw that they could throw things over, saw that they could get as close as to almost breaking the windows where the U.S. guards were on the other side. The next thing they wanted to do was roll through the embassy in a protest of civilians with Iraqi flags and make it look like the protesters were taking the embassy, when it would actually be the militias.
Pregent says if Soleimani and al-Mohandes had lived, a coup was all but certain.
Killing Qasem Soleimani was actually a de-escalating event. It sent a message to the regime that the president was really serious about hurting Iran.
Pregent also addressed the tidal wave of criticism against the president as Democrats demanded intelligence that led to the decision to take out Soleimani. Pregent points out it's important to remember that intelligence does not confirm an imminent attack. It only hints at one. John and Jenna.
Eric, thanks. Coming up, powerful Christian women leaders tackling tough, everyday issues. How they're inspiring women across the country to dive deep into prayer.
Hey, if you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
It's about the competition.
I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations.
It's about overcoming.
We use this phrase all the time, keep chopping, keep practicing hard.
It's about going the distance.
I think as a father, it's my job, to lead. Just be the best husband and father I can be.
Watch Going the Distance with Sean Brown Saturday night at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Orphans Promise is committed to loving and serving at-risk children, to helping keep families together, and to creating opportunities for strong and sustainable communities around the world. We're working in over 60 countries around the world, and with your help, we can do even more. There's an old African proverb I love that says, if you want to run fast, run alone. But if you want to run far, run together. At Orphans Promise, we want to run far so we can touch the lives of as many orphaned and vulnerable children as possible. But we don't want to go alone. We're out to change the world, one child, one family, one community at a time. Will you join us?
This Saturday, a women's prayer movement will host a live-streamed broadcast focused on prayer and the specific needs of women. Some well-known Bible teachers like Sheila Walsh and Priscilla Schreier will be leading topics including anxiety and depression, abuse, parenting, and military families.
We're now joined by Diane Strack, who founded the movement and the broadcast known as She Lives Out Loud. Diane, thank you for joining us. You've watched the women's movements like the one here in Washington, D.C. and thought something more was needed. Tell us why you started this movement.
I did. I had a wonderful mentor, Bonnet Bright, who co-founded Crew, and before she passed, she looked across the table at me in the kitchen and said, Diane, gather the women to pray. It's the only hope for our nation. And that whisper kind of stayed with me, but I didn't know what to do with it. And then sitting there watching that anger just permeate through our nation's capital, the Lord spoke to me and said, this cannot be the last word that the nation and that media sends out for women, because we believe that women have been valued by the Lord, that He's created them by His very heart. And so He never intended for us to go around with this anger just filling us. And as I watched this and then the Me Too movement came, I just wept for these women. I know that their pain is very real. But the Lord spoke to me and said, these women don't know what you know. They don't know there's a Father who loves unconditionally. They don't know there's a Savior who makes all things new. And they don't know there's a Holy Spirit who comforts and fills the mouth with joy. And so as this continued in me, I started calling a few friends. Would you pray with me about this? And they called a few friends. And eventually 1 year ago, around the conference table at Museum of the Bible, She Loves Out Loud was born.
Yeah. So the broadcast, you were taking on some really tough issues, abuse, mental health, and parenting, among many others. What made you choose some of these topics?
We went onto a ranch for 2 days, 3 days, and we prayed, we fasted, we literally laid on the ground and asked the Lord. And these were subjects that we heard continually being talked about, but with no answer, no peace, no way to follow through and find healing. So we heard women talking about abuse, and the statistics on abuse are overwhelming, even in our churches. We heard women in our churches talking about having had abortions and the guilt and the shame and the pain that they live with. And so as we listened to these stories and we began to pray, we just asked God to sort of fill for us with people that we should have on this program. And, we have a trafficking survivor whose story is just amazing, going from being homeless and a drug addict to now having a master's degree in mental health and reaching out and touching so many other women, going on stings, helping girls, has a rescue restoration home for girls under 24. We started talking about race relations. The Lord put together 40 churches in Memphis who are going to stand and lead our nation in a prayer of repentance.
Diane, we are out of time. I'm so sorry. We're going to have to leave it there. Diane Strack with She Loves Out Loud. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Well, still ahead, Tim Tebow's Night to Shine, now a worldwide event. We talked to one very special guest.
Daddy?
Yeah, buddy.
How many nickels are in a dollar?
There are 20 nickels in a dollar.
How do birds fly? Does milk really make my bones stronger?
Yeah.
Daddy, when we die, will we go to heaven?
Do you have the answer to life's biggest question? Call the 700 Club. We'll help you find answers to the important questions life brings your way.
Watch breaking news, in-depth exclusive stories and programs from health to entertainment you won't find anywhere else. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. Enjoy credible news reporting from around the world. Discover inspiring programs and stories of hope, all in one place from a Christian perspective. The CBN News Channel, a perspective you can trust. To watch the CBN News Channel, download the app or visit cbnnewschannel.com.
Hello, I'm Dr. David Perlmutter, board-certified neurologist and #1 New York Times bestselling author. Wouldn't it be great to boost your energy, eliminate brain fog, and even reverse brain disease? Well, you can, and I'm going to show you how, along with some of the world's most well-respected brain experts, in this DVD, Protect Your Brain.
Get Protect Your Brain, a free DVD only from the Christian Broadcasting Network, featuring experts on the cutting edge of neuroscience and brain health.
No matter how many times you've failed in the past, you really can do this.
In Protect Your Brain, you'll discover simple strategies to keep your brain young and healthy. Improve your memory. Discover the gut-brain connection. In Protect Your Brain. Get your free copy at cbn.com or call 1-800-700-7000.
If you want to improve the quality of your life, get the DVD Protect Your Brain and get it today.
Welcome back. Well, more than 110,000 kids with special needs were crowned kings and queens this past week. It was all part of a special event called Night to Shine.
Together with more than 700 churches in 34 countries and 215,000 volunteers, their Night to Shine gave kids the prom they always deserved.
We believe that when we're celebrating these kids and we're crowning them as the king or the queen of the prom, that's how the God of this universe looks at them every single day of their life.
This was the 6th year the Tim Tebow Foundation hosted the event, including cities like Rome, Paris, New York, LA, and as far as Calcutta, India.
Well, someone who attended the event is Catherine Wolf, and she joins us now. Catherine, good to have you. Thanks for being with us. Tell us what this event is like. What was your experience?
Oh, it was absolutely amazing in every way. From start to finish, the attendees, the special needs and disabled teenagers having a prom-like experience was glorious and really just very powerful. And my husband and I actually were the speakers at our local Night to Shine here in Atlanta, and we spoke to the caregivers. So like they come in together, and then all the caregivers kind of gather in a big room and have their own sort of separate dinner and let the kids have their prom. It's really precious.
Catherine, you said that you think the special needs prom blew the typical prom out of the water. Why is that?
1,000%. Who likes or even barely remembers their prom experience? But this is like a life highlight. At the end of the night, every girl, every guy gets crowned like prom king, prom queen, and it's just glorious. Really, really beautiful.
Catherine, you have such an inspiring story yourself, surviving a massive brainstem stroke in 2008. I'm sure your presence there gave a lot of the kids and caregivers hope, just like they gave you hope.
Absolutely. I am in a wheelchair nearly full time, and I obviously have a paralyzed face, and I have very difficult bodily situation, but that is not remotely holding me back in my life. God is at work in my story and using me in such a powerful way. And I get to share that with so many of the, young girls and teenagers and all of the disabled community. I just get to really hold the banner well and that tension well, because honestly, what the special needs community is really showcasing to the world is that life does not have to be pain-free for there to be joy in life. The joy, tremendous, deep joy, can come in a story where there is hard things and there is suffering, but that doesn't mean there's no joy to be found there.
Catherine, we only have a few seconds left. I know that what you just said kind of coincides with a new book that you co-authored with your husband, Jay. It's called Suffer Strong, How to Survive Anything by Redefining Everything.
Today is lunch day, today.
So what do you want your readers to take away from reading the book?
Oh, goodness. This book, Suffer Strong, is about the lessons we've learned in living post-stroke life in a disabled body, not driving, not walking, nothing. And yet, we have seen that suffering of all kinds is never the end of the story, but it is actually the beginning of a new story that God is writing in our lives. And we would love for people to know that, crazily, we can hold that tension of good things and hard things so well. And that is the Christian life, is embracing the tension of both of those and flourishing in the constraints that we've been given in our story.
Well, again, the new book is out today called Suffering Strong, and it's available wherever books are sold. Catherine, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, don't go anywhere.
Finally tonight, it's been a heavy couple of weeks in national politics.
You don't say. But today, a lighthearted affair for House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The California Democrat gifted a basket full of Ghirardelli chocolate and other treats to Missouri Congressman Emanuel Cleaver. This following a lost bet when the Kansas City Chiefs beat the San Francisco 49ers at the Super Bowl this year. In a joint press conference, both Pelosi and Cleaver said sports have the power to bring people together no matter their political beliefs.
That's sweet to see, quite literally.
Like, quite literally.
Yeah. That's going to do it for Faith Nation.
We'll see you again tomorrow.